Hey folks, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the news today, but the biggest story of all right now is the cocaine found at the White House. Original story on ABC as of the day it happened was it was found outside of the White House, and then it was found in the hallway, and then it was found in a cubby, and then it was found in the West Wing, and now they're trying uh, to say it wasn't found in the East Wing. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre has been getting blasted all day with people trying to ask her questions about it, and she doesn't really know how to answer other than saying the fact that the Bidens weren't in town. They were all out of town when this happened. She's covering for Hunter Biden, just my opinion, folks. But everybody's first thought was when they found cocaine in the White House was probably Hunter's. That's just speculation at this point, but that was my first guess. Now, if it's not Hunter's, it could have been somebody from that drag show that left it last week. Who really knows? They had a whole month of draggers there. But in reality, it's not even about the drugs that are there. To me, it's about the fact of what is going on in our sacred halls. This is an atrocity on so many levels. I wonder if this is just a distraction story. I wonder if Hunter just left his stash behind. I don't really know, but I know the media is not covering it very well. But I do remember a couple of things that were discussed about such things in the past. One, Madison Cawthorn said at one point, which I think this is one of the reasons that Kevin McCarthy did his best to get rid of him, was because Madison Cawthorn come out and said that they were having sex and cocaine parties involving these fundraisers, involving these politicians, including the Republicans. You all remember when Madison Cawthorn said that? From that point forward, a lot of the Republicans, especially the Unit Party, just kind of dissed him. And I think Madison Cawthorn lost his reelection behind the fact that Kevin McCarthy couldn't support him after, what was he doing? Telling on the party. Well, if they're drinking and doing drugs and involving themselves in all these crazy sex parties, hey, somebody ought to know. Somebody ought to tell it out. But in reality, if they want to find out where these drugs come from, why don't they back up some of that footage? We all know from the J6 event that there is dozens and dozens of cameras inside that White House, and easy enough to tell a story. Who stashed it in the cubby hole? Who was there to pick it up? They could have set this up even better if they knew that it was there. They could have picked it up. They could have dealt with it quietly and then set somebody up in a trap, figuring that somebody would possibly come back for their stash. Most people don't just go hide drugs in an inconspicuous place and not come back for them. I'm just having to guess it's either a staffer or somebody close to the Oval Office, and I'll just leave it at that. We're all speculating it's Hunter. It may not be Hunter. It may be somebody that just looks like Hunter. Now let's go ahead and get into the rest of this video. This is about one of the great rulings. This is a ruling in favor of free speech. This is a great win for us, especially if the Bidens are forced, the Biden and all these three-lettered agencies are forced to stay out of the social media's ear. That would be awesome for the 2024. Maybe get some kind of situation where they can't interfere as much on places, well, like they did on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. Everybody knows what they did over the last couple of years. They've literally weaponized these social media sites against us. We have a Louisiana and Missouri attorney generals that have been suing Biden's for about over a year now, over the border, over censorship, over suppression of information, including obstruction. And in this suing doctrine, it includes to implicate the DOJ, the FBI, and a lot of these three-lettered agencies that have actively done their best to collude with big tech to steal our free speech. Another way to put it, convert elections into what they want them to be versus what they are. It's definitely a suppression of information at the least. Let's go ahead and get into it. Otherwise, I'll tell you more about it than I really need to.
Meantime, Republicans are celebrating a federal court injunction, which essentially bars the Biden administration from communicating with major social media sites about the content their users are posting online. This basically restrictions were handed down by a Trump-appointed judge in Louisiana. It prohibits the White House and the agencies it oversees from flagging specific posts or requesting details about their efforts to remove certain content. The judge says that this injunction is all about protecting the First Amendment. Now, much of this dates back to the pandemic when the White House was accusing social...
Oh, and I forgot to tell you, they also win at this in this court case because of the overreach over the COVID misinformation, censorship, being called misinformation if you spoke out about it or even talked to people about other or shared any post about other possible remedies. All that stuff was frowned upon on all the social media sites, and that is just one more of the many things that is in this possible ruling against Biden. And we'll just have to see how detailed the judge goes with this. But at the moment, it looks like the Biden administration and all his three-lettered agencies are not allowed, from this point forward, allowed to play these Orwellian games.
Thank you, Mark. John Ratcliffe's with us, former Director of National Intelligence. Sir, good morning to you, and thank you for your time on this July 5th. Here's what the court said by the Judge Terry Doughty. During a period perhaps best characterized by widespread doubt and uncertainty, the United States government seems to have assumed a role similar to an Orwellian ministry of truth. What is really telling is that virtually all the free speech suppressed was conservative free speech.
Boom, there it is, folks. That right there tells you, just that statement alone, that the judge recognizes that this is a lopsided system on these platforms where the conservative speech is definitely suppressed, tampered down on, canceled. Not happening to the Democrats, not happening to left-wing media sites, only happening to the places like, Newsmax's information, the COVID information, a lot of Second Amendment conversations. There's so many things. I mean, the list goes on and on of the things that have been labeled as misinformation or just not allowed to talk about them. For example, the 2020 election process. Radio silence for a couple of years on most social media sites without or repercussions. That would be your choice. Now, hopefully all of this will squash all the abilities of these social media sites to be getting their arms twisted by the government to interfere in our elections. That's what matters, and that's why this filing is such a win for the country. It's not over. The case is still pending, but just from reading the judge's filings, this judge is calling it out. Orwellian, like in the movie 1984, talking about the ministry of truth, and he's talking about suppression of free speech, and he knows it's one-sided. This judge is obviously of sound mind, and he sounds like a constitutional judge, and it sounds like he is probably going to rule in favor, and not just on the injunction, but in the whole entire case, in favor of doing away with this robbing of our free speech, the censoring of our right to speak our minds and tell the truth.
What do you think about this? COVID was going on. You got a new administration in the White House. What's your take?
Well, I think that language reflects that this was a stunning rebuke, but also an appropriate one. And I will tell you, my take is that this is going to hold up on appeal because everything that the plaintiffs in this case allege has been proven largely to be true. So, you know, when you think about with respect to COVID-19, everything from the origins, lab leak, the efficacy of certain treatments, the transmissibility. I mean, you just heard President, Biden talking about, pandemic of the unvaccinated. All of that was frankly wrong, and yet Americans' ability to engage in honest debate about it was suppressed. And so you have these agencies with social media working to suppress the truth and amplify lies. And with regard to the issue of, the Hunter Biden laptop and election interference on that front, as you recall, Bill and Dana, on October 18th of 2020, I came out as the Director of National Intelligence and said, this is not Russian disinformation. We have no intelligence of that. That was based in part on the fact of my conversations with the Department of Justice and the FBI, with Bill Barr, with Director Wray, that the FBI had that laptop and that it had been verified and was being used as part of what was described as a money laundering investigation. And yet at that very same moment, we learned through the Twitter files that there were FBI agents at that very moment contradicting that with social media, executives to, again, suppress the truth and amplify a lie about that ultimately, could be characterized as a domestic disinformation campaign before a presidential election.
I call it election interference, folks. There is no other way to call it. That's what it is. But as you hear, we have a First Amendment right injunction over this particular case, which involves the big tech companies being put in a headlock, if not being partners with the deep state. It is what it is, folks. Like, subscribe, and share.